Okay, my name is Dr. Gill. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Atticus Education, LLC, a Dubai-based company that has varied interests in education. Atticus Education is a 2-year-old company, so it's a very young company. Started off by looking after the group's interests in primary school education with one school, which was a part of the chairman's family for almost 33 years. And the chairman then decided that he wanted to have a formal way of managing his educational portfolio. And that's where we came up with the idea of setting up Atticus Education in March 2016. Now in the age of 2 years, Atticus has grown into a company that has interests in not only in primary schools to secondary schools, but also in nursery schools and in higher education institutions. So Atticus has an involvement in terms of education, covers the entire gambit from starting from somebody, any 4 months old to 4 years in our nursery schools, from 5 years to 12, K-12 in our primary schools and secondary schools, and then obviously to higher education. So my role is to look after the operation side of everything to do with the delivery of quality education in those institutions that the group owns. We are a growing group very rapidly. We are very ambitious. Our chairman has a very ambitious vision and mission, and we are fulfilling that. So we believe that we'll be opening 1 or 2 new schools every year, and also looking at opening at least 3 nurseries a year, and then looking at expanding the higher education portfolio as well. So that's what we do as a company at Atticus Education LLC. Entire life in education. I was at a very young age when I found out that my father did not get the opportunity to go to school, and it was a difficult time for me to come to terms with that, because he was a very successful businessman, and he asked me to read the newspaper for him on a particular day, and I still remember that day very vividly. So he asked me to read the paper for him, and I said to him, "No, you read it yourself." And he said to me, "My son, I can't read." And I couldn't believe it. And afterwards, later on, I found out that my father had never been to school, although he was a very successful businessman. So as a young chap growing up, he always wanted me to be in education. So I studied my early years in Africa, where I was born in Kenya, and then moved on to the UK, where I did some schooling education, graduated from school, got my first degree, got my master's, and then I got my doctorate in engineering. And after that, I pursued a career in universities as an academic, then as a researcher, then as a dean. And my area of research was nuclear medicine, and I have some developments and quite a number of publications in the field, and had a lot of research funding from the United Kingdom Research Councils, and supervised PhD students, etc. Then in 1993, there came a very definitive change in my education, because I had so much experience of traveling around the world and cultural awareness, etc. And the world was beginning to take international education seriously. I started to assist the international office at the university that I used to work with. And we started our overseas marketing campaigns, etc. And I was very heavily involved with that for many, many years, which led to me becoming a pro-vice chancellor at the same university. And we won 2 awards for export from the Queen in the United Kingdom in 2003 and 2011. And this is for revenue generation in terms of education, and international students come to the UK, and also for other aspects of it. We also expanded the university's delivery from 25,000 students in the UK to, over the years, to over 60,000 people around the world. Then in 2005, we set up Middlesex University, Dubai, and thereon I set up campuses around the world, in Mauritius, in Malta, and other places. So it's been a very rapid journey till I decided that I wanted to change, and then joined and decided to call it a day for my career at a university and to work for the private sector. I wanted to find out what it was like to work in the private sector. And fortunately for me, I got the chance to become the Chief Operating Officer of Atticus Education. So that's my journey. The future of education in the UAE is extremely bright. And I say that because I've been in the UAE for 20 years myself. I've seen the birth of the KHDA. When we first brought the university in, there was no such thing as any regulation in the UAE. There was the Ministry of Higher Education, Scientific Research, etc. So I've seen the proliferation of the higher education sector. There are more than 53 universities operating in the UAE. When I first came to Dubai, if you spoke to somebody and said, how would you like to send your child to be educated in Dubai? They would say, I am not going to send my child to Dubai. It's a shopping place. It has nothing to do with education. Dubai is now a known place for education. So it's growing in maturity. With the KHDA coming in, looking at governance at all levels of education and improving the quality, which I think has improved leaps and bounds. I mean, no one could probably claim that the journey is complete in terms of the quality of education in the UAE, but the amount of progress that is being made is significant. So I'm very upbeat about it. And if you look at it, the number of institutions will keep growing, the number of students coming in from the region will keep growing. And people like Dubai. People want to be in Dubai. And I believe that the recent changes made by the government, where they're going to give students 10-year visas, etc., is a great development. People in their early years who want to set up businesses after they qualify, etc., it gives them a lot of stability. And with all the opportunities provided by Dubai, well, for me, as I said to you, education as a career was probably chosen by my father more than myself. I mean, I took engineering as a career, so I did work as an engineer. And then I went into teaching. And I love teaching. For me, teaching was never a job. I enjoyed being with students, seeing them grow. It was very gratifying. I have got to know in the time I spent in education, which is almost 38 years, I've seen so many people go through education. I found it very gratifying. I think it's a very noble profession. I think if you have the right opportunities, etc., and you take those opportunities, and I've done so internationally, I still enjoy it. And there are lots of challenges as well. So it's the challenge, it's the cultural aspects, it's the delivery on the business end, the quality of the education. So there's so many different aspects, and I am extremely passionate about education. I think that's very important. So that's what's kept me in the education profession. And I think till I retire, I'll be in the same profession. I am now not in the higher education sector, as I explained earlier. I'm working in the kindergarten sectors, the early years, schools, K-12, and also in training institutes. So it exposes me to different aspects of education, which I'm really enjoying. We have an educational management and services company. We also own the number of schools that are owned by the family of the chairman. And we are charged with managing those schools. When we talk about managing, basically we operate those schools. So the schools belong to us, but we have a board of governors and advisory boards that help us run the schools. And we are passionate that we want to make sure that our schools meet the KHDA requirements and the national agenda requirements with the vision of the ruler of Dubai, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, which we believe is an excellent agenda. So we support that, and we have a school, we have a very old school, as I said, within the family, which we're developing through and bringing to looking at what its delivery is to make sure that the quality improves. And it's been a difficult journey. Whenever you go to any country and set up an educational system where you don't have the provision of people who directly contribute, it makes it difficult because you need to find the teachers. And teachers are in short supply in Dubai, or good quality teachers are in short supply in Dubai. And also the proliferation of education generally and the number of schools makes it difficult to find good teachers. So there's a challenge in terms of balancing what you're providing and what you're able to provide, and also what you can charge. So the days when you could open up a school in Dubai and charge the fee you want, and students just came in, are long gone. I would say to people that there are a lot of people who never got any education in their life. My father was an example, and he was a successful businessman. So I'm not going to tell you that education is the only way forward. Perhaps it's not the only way forward. Different people will also succeed through other routes. So I think you've got to look at those routes and admire those. Education helps you along. It probably gives you a shortcut. It reduces the amount of knocks you're going to get on the way, on the journey to success. For me, somebody who's involved in education every day, I would always say to people that if you want to get ahead, get educated. So, although I said there are other ways to get through, and there are many success stories of people who have made it, largely those people who have made it have had an education in the world. So I would say to you, choose a career carefully, because your career is what you will be doing for the majority of your life once you finish your schooling. So you better pick something that you're going to enjoy. Otherwise, you're going to be very miserable. But enjoyment is one thing in a profession. The next thing is that you need a good standard of living. So make your decisions very carefully. Look what you enjoy doing when you're at school. Get the appropriate advice from people. Talk to people who have already been in the professions. They can guide you and tell you. You'll always find some people who get into professions and they have great regrets about that. And certain people want to change those professions. The world is changing very quickly now, so people can change professions. You can re-educate yourself through your mid of your career and change the course that you have. So there's a lot of flexibility, but I think education gives you a lot of advantages.